My name is Ken Kunken, and I'd like to begin by telling you a little bit about the introduction that I wrote to my book. And the book begins by telling you that in 1970, I was a fairly typical 20-year-old college student at Cornell University. I worked hard in school, and I loved sports. I was a member of a fraternity, and I had a lot of good friends. And like many 20-year-olds, I dreamed of leading a useful, productive, rewarding, and happy life. On the night of October 30th, 1970, I was attempting to cook dinner on a gas stove for some of my football teammates. But when the pilot light was lit, gas that had been building up inside the stove suddenly exploded. And there was a bright flash of light coupled with a thunderous boom, and I instinctively looked down to see if I was hurt. And incredibly, I was not injured. I was not burned. I was not even singed. And I remember lying in bed that night thinking how lucky I was. I remember thinking, as I guess 20-year-olds often do, if I can survive an explosion like that without being injured, I can survive anything. Nothing can happen to me. I must be invincible. The next day, I broke my neck. I was injured making a tackle on a kickoff in a lightweight football game against Columbia University. I was playing for Cornell. And in an instant, I went from being in the best shape of my life and with a very promising future to being paralyzed from the shoulders down and totally dependent on those around me. I spent the next 9 months and 20 days in various hospitals and rehabilitation centers. I now have a little bit of movement in my left arm and almost nothing in my right. My family consulted with a specialist about my condition. He told them I probably wouldn't survive the week. He said if I was to survive, I wouldn't be able to do anything. My life expectancy would be between 5 and 9 years, and I'd probably end up living that time in a nursing home. He was wrong. After I was discharged from the hospital, I returned to Cornell. This was 20 years before the Americans with Disabilities Act. Every building had steps in front of it. My first day of classes, I had to be either pulled up or bounced down close to 100 steps. But I worked hard while I was up there, and during the next 2 years, I completed my junior and senior year. And in 1973, I became the first quadriplegic to ever graduate from Cornell University. With a degree. I got a degree in industrial engineering. But I changed my career goal, stayed up at Cornell, and earned a Master of Arts degree, majoring in education. And I became the first quadriplegic to ever earn a graduate degree from Cornell University. And then to increase my counseling credentials, I went to Columbia University, where I obtained a Master of Education degree in psychology. And then I went to work for the Viscardi Center here in Albertson, where I worked as a vocational rehabilitation counselor. And while there, I became a nationally certified rehabilitation counselor. I was named the Long Island Rehabilitation Association's Rehabilitants of the Year in 1977, and in 1979, Norman Vincent Peale, the best-selling author of the book The Power of Positive Thinking, devoted one of his nationally syndicated radio broadcasts to talking about me and how I was conducting my life. But while I was at the center, I felt there was even more that I could do. So I left the center and went to Hofstra University's law school. And I graduated there after the standard 3-year time period, passed the New York State Bar exam the first time that I took it, and went to work for Nassau County as Nassau County Assistant District Attorney. 2 weeks ago, I retired. Wow. I worked there for more than 41 years, and I became one of their deputy bureau chiefs, where I was supervising more than 25 other assistant district attorneys. But what I'd really like to tell you about is my personal life. I did my best to try and let my injury not deter me from doing all the things I wanted to accomplish before I was injured. And that included dating. And as you may expect, dating when you're quadriplegic and trying to impress a woman when you're almost totally paralyzed poses its own unique set of challenges. So it took me a while, but eventually I met the woman of my dreams. She's standing right over here. My wife Anna, and we got married on June 14, 2003. I thought that would be the best day of my life. But obviously it got better, unfortunately. Because when we talked about getting married, Anna said that she'd like to have my children. Not just a baby, but my baby. She said she'd like to see a little Kunken running around our home. Now this seemed impossible. At the time I'd been paralyzed for more than 30 years, and I was already in my 50s. But I know there's an expression in the military that we've always liked. The difficult we do at once, the impossible takes a little longer. Well, we were determined to make the impossible happen. We looked into various options and found it still may be possible through in vitro fertilization for me to father a child. So we went through in vitro. And on January 24th, 2005, I was present in the delivery room. I was present in the delivery room when my wife Anna gave birth to triplets. We have three incredible sons, Joey, Jimmy, and Tim, and I cannot begin to tell you how much we love them. This year, they are all freshmen in college at 3 different schools, and they're doing great. And I just have to only single out one of the boys, Joseph, because he's a freshman at Cornell University, 50 years after I graduated from there. He's a freshman. I wrote this book about my life. I dream of things that never were. The Ken Kunken story. I'll just tell you a little bit of how I got that title. While I was still a patient in the hospital, I was asked to testify before a United States Senate subcommittee hearing on health care, chaired by Senator Edward Kennedy. And 8 days after my testimony, Senator Kennedy sent me a glass paperweight in the mail that had an inscription on it that he said his late brother Robert Kennedy liked very much. It was a quotation originally attributed to George Bernard Shaw, and the words on that inscription have always been very meaningful to me. The inscription read, "Some men see things as they are and say why. I dream of things that never were and say why not." That's the title of my book.